A Palestinian plot threatens to destroy the peace negotiations in the Middle East. Now, former terrorist hunter Gabriel Allon must re-enter the brutal world of espionage to thwart a lethal threat from his past. And now, The Kill Artist.
Prologue. Vienna, January 1991. The restorer raised his magnifying visor and switched off the bank of fluorescent lights. He waited for his eyes to adjust to the murkiness of evening in the cathedral. Then he inspected a tiny portion of the painting just below an arrow wound on the leg of St. Stephen. Over the centuries, the paint had worn completely down to the canvas. The restorer had so carefully repaired the damage that without the use of specialized equipment it was now quite impossible to tell his work from the original, which meant he had done his job very well indeed. The restorer crouched on the work platform, wiped his brushes and palette, and packed away his paints into a flat, rectangular case of polished wood. Nightfall had blackened the soaring stained-glass windows of the cathedral. A blanket of new snow had muffled the usual hum of the Vienna evening rush. So quiet was the Stephansdom that the restorer would scarcely have been surprised to see a medieval sexton scurrying across the nave by torchlight. He climbed off the high scaffolding with the agility of a house-cat and dropped silently onto the stone floor of the chapel. A knot of tourists had been watching him work for several minutes. As a rule, the restorer did not like spectators. Indeed, some days he shrouded the platform in a grey tarpaulin. Tonight's crowd dispersed as he pulled on a reefer coat and woolen watch-cap. Softly he bid them buona sera, instinctively recording each face in his mind, as permanently as if they were rendered with oil on canvas. An attractive German girl tried to engage him in conversation. She spoke to him in poor Italian. In rapid Berlin-accented German — his mother had lived in Charlottenburg before the war — the restorer said he was late for an appointment and couldn't talk now. German girls made him uneasy. Reflexively his eyes wandered over her, across her large rounded breasts, up and down her long legs. She mistook his attention for flirting, tilted her head, smiled at him through a lock of flaxen hair, suggested a coffee in the café across the square. The restorer apologized and said he had to leave. "Besides," he said, looking up at the soaring nave, "this is Stephansdom, Fräulein, not a pick-up bar." A moment later he passed through the entrance of the cathedral and struck out across the Stephansplatz. He was of medium height, well below 6 feet. His black hair was shot with grey at the temples. His nose was rather long and angular, with sharp edges across the bridge that left the suggestion it had been carved from wood. Full lips, cleft chin, cheekbones broad and square. There was a hint of the Russian steppes in his eyes, almond-shaped, unnaturally green, very quick. His vision was perfect, despite the demanding nature of his work. He had a confident walk, not an arrogant swagger or a march, but a crisp, purposeful stride that seemed to propel him effortlessly across the snow-bound square. The box containing his paints and brushes was under his left arm, resting on the metal object that he wore habitually on his left hip.